Now we come to The Hobbit. And so the origins of this is Tolkien one day was grading papers, and a student had left a page blank, and he was sitting there, and so he wrote down, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." What is a hobbit? He had to go and figure out what exactly this thing was. And he would begin to tell stories to his sons about a particular hobbit named Bilbo Baggins and the adventures that he had had. Tolkien eventually wrote it down, and it ended up with the publishers George Allen and Unwin Limited, and the owner gave it to his 10-year-old son Rayner Unwin to read. And he wrote a little report about it to his father, basically saying this should be published. This would be a good story for kids ages 6 to 9. And so it was published September 21st, 1937. And the book actually begins talking about what a hobbit is. Obviously, if you've seen the movies, you know what they are. Everybody now knows what they are. But anyway, the first chapter is basically just Bilbo sitting there smoking tobacco. This is something that Tolkien liked to do, and he put a lot of himself into Bilbo. And the hobbits are basically English people. It says they are half our height, which in Middle-earth, the tallest humans were the Númenóreans, who were over 6 feet tall. And so the hobbits would be half the size of a Númenórean, so about 3.5 feet, because Elendil was known as the Tall, and he was over 7 feet. And in those days, in the days of Númenor, especially in the royal line, they were 7 feet tall. So Elendil had to be over 7 feet. And so this kind of gives us the height for what a hobbit is. Alright? And so, of course, in this first chapter is just introduction to Bilbo. Gandalf comes along, wants Bilbo to go on an adventure, and he doesn't want to go. And then, of course, the next day, a bunch of 13 dwarves show up with Gandalf, and they tell him where they're going. And, of course, as you know, they're going to go to Lonely Mountain to reclaim their treasure that was taken from them by Smaug the dragon. Now, Tolkien had based the dwarves kind of on the dwarves you see in Grimm's fairy tales. But he took their names from the Poetic Edda, and here is part 1 of what I have of the Edda. This edition is in 2 parts. These are mythological poems, and then you have poems of the heroes. But the dwarves come from the first, in this one, called the Voluspo. And it does mention, the origin of the dwarves and gives their names. And I'm going to actually read a part of this. Alright? Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones, and council held, to find who should raise the race of dwarfs, out of Brimmer's blood and the legs of Blaine. There was Motsognir, the mightiest maid of all the dwarves, and Durin next. Many a likeness of men they made, the dwarves in the earth, as Durin said. I'm going to butcher some of these names. Nai and Nithi, Northri and Suthri, Austri and Vestri, Athiolv, Dvalin, Nar, Nain, Nipping, Dan, Biffer, Boffer, Bomber, Nori, An and Onar, Ai, Mithoth, Vitnir, Vig and Gandalf, Vindalf, Thran, Thek and Thorin, Thor, Vit and Lit, Nir and Nirath. Now have I told, Regan and Rathsvith, the list aright. Fili, Kili, Funden, Nali, Heptaphili, Hanar, Severe, Frar, Hornbury, Frag, Loni, Arvang, Yari, Oakenskildi, which is Oakenshield. So Tolkien took Thorin and Oakenshield and put them together and came up with the leader of the dwarves, who originally was going to be named Gandalf, but then he decided Gandalf should be the name of the wizard. As you see here in the Voluspo, this is the name of a dwarf. The race of the dwarves is in Dvalin's throng. Down to Lothar the list must I tell. The rocks they left, and through wetlands they sought a home in the fields of sand. There was Draupnir and Dulgthrasir, Hor and Haugsbori, Levang, Gloin, Dori Ori, Doof, Andvari, Skirfer, Virfer, Scaveth, Alv and Ingvi, Akenskildi, Fiolar and Frosty, Fifth and Ginnar. So for all time shall the tale be known, the list of all the forebears of Lothar. And again, like I said, I probably butchered the names. I do not know Norse at all. But you get the picture of where you get the picture. And this is where Tolkien took the names. And like I said, Gandalf was the name of the leader until he changed it to Thorin and made Gandalf the wizard. And of course, last but not least, they do mention in the book the Necromancer, which is of course Sauron, who we just talked about in the Silmarillion. He's not in this book, not like what you see in the movie, but his presence can definitely be felt there. I mean, he's hovering on the borders of the story, among many other dark things that Tolkien doesn't really go into. And this is written kind of in a style where you could read it to children. And he realized later that it was a mistake making this for children. And he tried to rewrite it and make it more in line with The Lord of the Rings, which came after. And he only got through like the first 3 chapters. Never really got far into it. I have not read this, but it is something I would like to read. Yeah, it can be found in The History of the Hobbit, which was originally a 2-volume set, but I think they now have a 1-volume edition of that. And this is the revised edition of The Hobbit, because the original first edition that came out in 1937 is different, especially when we get to Chapter 5, and I hope to go through those differences, because you can find this information online when I get to that chapter. If I missed anything, I'm sorry. I don't think I did, though. But there you go, the first video in The Hobbit, and I will bring more to you. How I'm going to structure this, probably going to be similar to the way I did the Silmarillion, but I'm kind of thinking of doing something a little different. So I really don't know. I'll just have to figure that out as I'm reading, so bear with me. But I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy my Silmarillion videos. Go back and check those out. And I'll be back hopefully tomorrow with another video. And we'll see how we're going to do that. But until then, adios.